Okay, let's talk about content versus process and why you want to stay in process mode while you're doing a session with a client, and why you want to stay out of content mode for the most part. And it results in faster results, more effective sessions. Everybody's happier. I'm Keith Livingston from hypnosis101.com. Let's dive right in. There's a funny thing about context. That is, people tend to bring down rules and beliefs and emotions that are related to a particular context. When I'm teaching a class, sometimes I'll say, okay, how many here have gone into your auto mechanic's office, taken off your clothes, sat down, and waited for your mechanic? And usually the look on the faces of people is, what, are you crazy? I would never do anything like that. And then I say, okay, how many of you have done something similar at your doctor's office? Then I see some more hands going up. So the doctor's office context has certain behaviors attached to it, certain beliefs attached to it, certain things we will do and we won't do, certain emotions attached to it. The auto mechanics has a different set of beliefs and rules and whatnot attached to it. Well, almost any situation in which you have a regular problem, it's because, in general, there's a belief in there, there's a feeling in there, there's a pattern in there, there's a strategy in there that isn't working for you. So you need to change it. But the mind doesn't want to consider doing this behavior over there because it's crazy, right? However, we need to shift that thinking and expand so that we can get more resources from more contexts into the problem situation. So what is process style thinking and what is content type thinking? What are the differences? Let me illustrate with a story. So my friend George went to the store. He didn't know where the garbanzo beans were, so he asked someone where they were. This person said, oh, they're on aisle 3. They went over to aisle 3, and there, in fact, they were. It turns out the person didn't work for the store, and so they had a good laugh about that. George got his beans and went home. Okay, the content of that story is about garbanzo beans. The process is about solving a problem. So someone has a problem, they find an outside resource, they solve the problem, they get some good feelings, and they go home. Another story would be looking for an internal resource. So let's suppose George goes to the store, doesn't know where the garbanzo beans are, takes a moment to calm himself, remembers all the other times that he's been in the store, remembers he saw a different kind of beans on aisle 3, goes to aisle 3, and sure enough, the garbanzo beans are nearby. In this case, the process is very similar, except George is going for an internal resource instead of looking for the answer from the outside. Now, what does this mean for therapy? How do we do process style therapy? Well, someone might have a fear of spiders, and here's an actual person that had a fear of spiders. She was looking through a National Geographic magazine as a kid, and she opened up a picture of a big scary spider, and right then her father went boo right in her ear. So now whenever she sees a spider, she sees it in the outside world. That picture comes back in her mind, and then the sound comes back in her mind's ear, and she has the negative feelings come up. Well, that's the process. Outside trigger, picture, sound. These things have bad feelings attached to them, therefore she has the fear. Now, I worked with a gal that had a fear of snakes, and she had a very similar experience. Whenever she saw a picture of a snake or even spaghetti, she made an image of a snake in this area, and then she got negative feelings. I don't know if she had a sound in there or not. We never got to that point. So, does it really matter if it's a picture of a snake or a picture of a spider? Well, let me put a scenario in front of you. Do you know about the swish pattern? If you don't, it's just an NLP pattern for changing images in your mind's eye. So a picture of a snake may have a negative emotion attached to it. If we change to a different image, it doesn't have the emotion attached to it. So we want to find a resource emotion. In the case of this client, it was the pride that she had from graduating from high school. So we swished the image from the snake to a picture of her dissociated graduating from high school, and she had different feelings. And you do it in such a way, and you do it fast enough that the pattern becomes automatic. Whenever you try to make the old picture, the new picture comes in. Does it matter whether that's a picture of a snake or a spider? Not very much. Does it matter to me what picture she wants to put in there? No. Do I have to know what picture it is? No. As long as it has a good resourceful feeling that's kind of the opposite of the fear, then we're good to go. Now, let me give you another story. Okay, so I was trying to decide which mosquito repellent to use. And I didn't know if I should go with the chemical route or the natural route. So I popped online, did a bunch of research, weighed the pros and cons, decided which would work for me, and got it, and now I'm comfortable going outside. Now, I can bet that there are a bunch of you right now at your keyboard about to type to me about what type of mosquito repellent I should use. That's content style thinking, right? We want to stay in process thinking, which is, in a problem situation, in a problem context, go find a resource that applies to that context and apply it. So, if you have a client that wants to decide on mosquito repellent, and you start to tell them, this is the kind of mosquito repellent you should use, in my mind, you're doing the wrong thing. Your job is not to tell the client what to do, except for this. Tell the client to go find some internal resources, usually, to get themselves into a better state or have a better strategy or have a better belief system so they can solve their own problems. We don't tell them what to do. We get them into a state through which they can solve the issue. So how do we work more content-free? And it's interesting, because there are metaphors. Erickson used to heal through metaphors a lot. I use metaphors a lot in my work. Why is that? Well, metaphors engage all parts of the mind. So while the conscious mind is following the thing about the mosquitoes, the unconscious mind is following this other path that says, okay, problem, resource, solution. So you can tell a metaphor up here, and the unconscious follows the different level of communication. Now, hypnosis is an incredible way to lower the barriers between contexts so that we can get resources applied. Anchoring is a way to take a feeling from one context and add it to another. So if someone has a fear of public speaking, for instance, we might anchor a feeling of calmness and focus and excitement, and then we take that into the mental imagery of speaking in public and notice how this feeling shifts their whole experience. So we need resources from one context, we add them to another. That's essentially most of what we do as hypnotherapists and NELPers. And almost every technique that we use is designed to do that in one way or another. Reframing, anchoring, hypnotic suggestion. They're all bringing resources from one area to another. So the first thing to do in terms of working in types of process thinking is to think of it in that way. Think, okay, this is a problem state. How am I going to get a resource into that problem state? In what context could there be a resource that might be helpful? In what context would the problem strategy be helpful? There's different ways of thinking about it, right? It is not thinking about mosquitoes. It's not thinking about garbanzo beans. You probably knew that. But if you're caught in the details of the story, it's a trap. You'll find yourself arguing with your clients more when you make suggestions. It's not client-centered hypnotherapy. If you want to be client-centered and client-focused, you help to get them into a state in which they can solve their own problems. And process thinking is a great way to do that. I'm Keith Livingston. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, share it. Let's see your comments. Love to hear them. There'll be another video coming up soon. Talk to you then. Bye-bye. Can't get enough Super Sugar Crisp. Okay. The content of that story is about garbanzo. Now I can bet now I can bet my ear itches. That's what I can bet.